When I checked my wife's phone, I found something that I could never have imagined. Where is our marriage headed now? Hi, my name is Adam and I'm in my early 30s. I've been married to Emily for almost 7 years now, and we have 2 beautiful kids, a 4-year-old boy named Noah and a 2-year-old girl named Lily. My life has always felt pretty normal. Well, until recently when something I didn't expect started to show up in the most surprising ways. Emily and I met in college, but it wasn't love at first sight. I remember feeling that spark later on when we started talking about our lives, our pasts, and all the things we had in common. I always thought that our relationship was built on trust and the shared history we had created together. But over the last few months, something changed, and it was like I was seeing Emily through a different lens. A change I never saw coming, and certainly not one I was prepared for. It started with something small, something that seemed insignificant at first, but now I can see how it crept into our lives and turned everything upside down. It all began during one of those lazy Saturday afternoons. Emily and I were sitting on the couch, flipping through old photo albums, as we often do when the kids are napping. She was laughing at old pictures of her high school friends and reliving memories of her teenage years. I joined in, laughing at how she looked with braces and that awkward stage she went through, like we all do in high school. But then she stopped on a picture, and I noticed her smile faded a little. I asked her what was wrong, and she hesitated before saying, "This was during the time I had the biggest crush on someone." Her tone was casual, but there was something in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before. I raised an eyebrow. Who? Some guy from high school? Emily gave a small nod and started talking about Jake, a guy she'd gone to high school with. He was the popular kid, the one every girl had a crush on. The more she talked about him, the more I could see a little sparkle in her eyes, like she was reminiscing about a time before she met me. It didn't sit right with me. Something about the way she spoke of Jake, the fondness in her voice, it felt like more than just a teenage crush. Over the next few weeks, Emily would mention Jake more and more. It started off casually, like it was no big deal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One evening, as we were talking about our plans for the upcoming weekend, she brought up Jake again. This time, it wasn't just a passing mention. "I heard Jake's in town this weekend," Emily said, almost as if testing the waters. "I should catch up with him." I was caught off guard. It felt like a punch in the gut, even though I knew she hadn't done anything wrong. I tried to keep my cool, but jealousy started to bubble up inside me. "Why would you want to meet up with him after all these years?" I asked, my voice a little harsher than I intended. Emily looked at me, surprised. "He was a good friend back in high school, Adam. I thought it would be nice to reconnect." I nodded, but inside, something shifted. The thought of my wife, the woman I loved and built a life with, reconnecting with her high school crush, someone I couldn't compete with, hit me hard. A few days later, Emily mentioned that Jake had reached out to her on social media, asking if they could chat. I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't stop my mind from racing. The questions flooded in. Was she still thinking about him? What if she was secretly regretting the life we had? Would she still have feelings for him? I couldn't shake the fear that maybe I wasn't enough. It wasn't long before Emily started spending more time on her phone, scrolling through old pictures and chatting with Jake. I couldn't help but wonder what they were talking about. One evening, as she stepped out to the store, I made a decision. I grabbed her phone, something I never thought I'd do. I went through her messages and found a string of conversations between her and Jake. It wasn't anything inappropriate, at least not in the way I imagined, but the messages were full of inside jokes, shared memories, and a closeness I hadn't expected. I felt a knot in my stomach, and for the first time in our marriage, I questioned whether I was enough for her. But then, something strange happened. As I scrolled through the messages, I found one that caught my eye. It was a message from Emily to Jake, one that I hadn't seen before. "I always wondered what would have happened if we had stayed in touch," it read. "You were always the one that got away." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't know how to process it. The one that got away? Was that how she saw him? Was I just the person she settled for? I didn't know how to respond, but my mind was racing. I couldn't let it go. I needed answers. Later that evening, I confronted Emily. The words came out before I could stop them. Why didn't you tell me about the messages with Jake? Why didn't you mention how you feel about him? I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but beneath the anger was a deep hurt that I couldn't express. Emily's face dropped. She looked like she was caught in the headlights. Adam, I didn't think it was a big deal, she said softly. It was just a bit of nostalgia. It didn't mean anything. But the way she said it made me feel like it did. She wasn't as innocent in this as she made it seem. I don't know, Emily. It doesn't feel like nothing. You said he was the one that got away. What does that even mean? Her eyes welled up with tears. I didn't mean it like that, I swear. It's just that sometimes I wonder, what if I had made different choices? What if things had gone differently between us? I sat there, stunned. I knew marriage wasn't perfect and people had regrets, but hearing my wife talk about her what-ifs was like a punch in the stomach. It made me feel like I was losing her, even though she was right in front of me. I don't know if I can compete with your memories, Emily, I said, my voice shaking. I don't know if I can be the man you need me to be when you're still holding on to someone else. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the raw vulnerability in her eyes. I'm sorry, Adam. I don't want to hurt you. I love you, but I didn't realize how much of a part of me that time with Jake still was. The tension between Emily and me started to affect everything. Our kids noticed the distance between us. Noah, especially, started asking why we weren't laughing together like we used to. The family dinners became quieter, and our nights, once filled with love and closeness, turned into awkward silences. Even our friends noticed the shift. At a recent gathering, Emily seemed distant, lost in her thoughts, and I felt like a stranger beside her. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to fix it. I was losing the woman I loved, and I couldn't stand it. A week passed, and things between Emily and me were still unsettled. We were stuck in a strange limbo, her reminiscing about the past, me trying to hold on to the present. I didn't know how to move forward. Emily wanted to stay in touch with Jake, and I didn't know if I could bear to let her. One evening, I asked her, "What do you want from me, Emily? What do you want from this marriage?" She didn't have an answer. She just looked at me, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "I don't know." The uncertainty hung in the air between us, leaving me questioning everything about our relationship. Was it possible to go back to the way things were? Or was I simply holding on to a love that had already slipped away? This story isn't just about love. It's about the fears and doubts that can creep into a relationship when we least expect it. Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation? Have you struggled with the lingering shadow of someone from your past? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story relatable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that hit close to home. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.